My name is Emily, and today I want you to imagine the excitement, anticipation, and little bit of nervousness that builds as a family celebration approaches, whether it's a birthday, a holiday, or any special event. In my case, this celebration is extra important because it's my first time fully participating with my stepdad and stepbrother, which means I need to navigate new dynamics, understand household expectations, and prepare myself socially and linguistically. And as I start planning, I think about all the English vocabulary and phrases I will need throughout the event, like greetings, compliments, polite requests, and expressions of gratitude. And I begin practicing aloud, saying phrases such as happy birthday, happy holidays, can I help with this? Would you like me to take this plate? The decorations look amazing. Thank you for including me in this celebration. And by repeating these aloud, I not only practice pronunciation, but also train my mind to respond confidently and naturally when the moment comes. And I visualize walking into the room filled with colorful decorations, balloons, sparkling lights, and the delicious aroma of food being prepared. Imagining myself greeting everyone warmly, from my stepdad to my stepbrother, to cousins, friends, and extended family. And I imagine responding to each person with both politeness and enthusiasm, saying things like, it's so nice to see you. I really love the way the cake looks. Or I appreciate all the effort you put into decorating. And I notice my internal dialogue helping me prepare emotionally and linguistically, because celebrations are not only social gatherings, they are immersive learning experiences where language, culture, and etiquette intersect. And I also rehearse conversations with my stepbrother, who might tease or joke around, practicing responses like, that's funny, or good one, while maintaining politeness. And I also consider how to respond to my stepdad's instructions or guidance, such as helping with food, arranging seating, or organizing a game. And I practice phrases like, would you like me to help with the cake? Or can I take this to the table? To ensure I can participate actively and respectfully. As I prepare, I also think about the cultural and traditional aspects of the celebration, such as the proper way to light candles, perform rituals, or offer gifts. And I narrate each step internally in English, saying to myself, I am placing the candles carefully on the cake, or I am giving the gift with both hands while smiling politely, which helps reinforce descriptive vocabulary, action verbs, and correct sentence structure. I also practice asking and answering questions naturally, imagining a scenario where a cousin might ask, did you help with the decorations? And I respond confidently, yes, I arranged the balloons and set up the table settings. And by mentally rehearsing these dialogues, I train my mind to respond fluidly without hesitation, improving both listening and speaking skills in authentic contexts. Furthermore, I practice expressing gratitude throughout the event, thinking about what I will say when receiving gifts, compliments, or guidance, and rehearsing phrases such as, thank you so much for including me, or I really appreciate your help and support. And I also narrate internally the actions of other family members, describing their gestures, tone, and expressions aloud. For example, my stepdad is smiling and handing out plates, and I am noticing his instructions carefully, which strengthens comprehension and attention to social cues. As I continue preparing, I visualize the flow of the celebration, entering the room, greeting everyone, helping with setup, participating in group games, giving compliments to the host, assisting with serving food, joining in the singing or music, and interacting with my stepbrother through playful competition or conversation. And I narrate each imagined interaction aloud, describing both language and actions. I am passing the snack tray to my stepbrother and saying, "Here you go. Would you like some?" Or I compliment my cousin on the decorations, saying, "These look amazing," which builds confidence and fluency simultaneously. I also anticipate potential challenges, such as overlapping conversations, fast speech, or cultural norms I may not be familiar with. And I plan how to handle them, rehearsing phrases like, "Could you please repeat that?" Or, "I'm sorry, can you explain this custom?" So that I can participate smoothly without confusion or embarrassment. And by thinking through every detail, I am turning preparation into an active practice session, strengthening vocabulary related to celebrations, greetings, etiquette, and polite interaction. As I set up decorations, arrange the table, and rehearse greetings, I narrate my own actions aloud. I am placing the candles in the center carefully. I am arranging the chairs neatly, and I am practicing how to say, "Happy birthday, I hope you enjoy your day," which reinforces sentence structure, descriptive English, and confidence in speaking, while also training my mind to respond quickly during real interactions. Additionally, I rehearse complimenting and thanking different people for their contributions. "Thank you for helping set up. Your cake looks incredible." Or, "I really appreciate the music playlist." And I imagine saying these phrases naturally while maintaining polite tone, eye contact, and appropriate body language, which integrates cultural understanding with language learning. I also think about interactions with my stepbrother, imagining playful exchanges, shared jokes, or collaborative tasks, and practicing conversational phrases like, "Do you want to help me with this game?" Or, "I think we should try this together," which builds teamwork vocabulary and interactive language skills. And I narrate internally my feelings of excitement, slight nervousness, and anticipation, noticing that actively reflecting on emotions while practicing English makes real interactions easier and more natural. In addition to verbal preparation, I practice responding to unexpected situations, a gift mix-up, last-minute decoration change, or someone arriving early. And I rehearse sentences like, "No problem," "I can help adjust this," or "Let me assist with that," which builds adaptability, fluency, and problem solving in English. Finally, I reflect on the celebration from a learner's perspective, imagining the enjoyment, laughter, conversations, and shared experiences. And I narrate the entire scenario internally, describing the room, actions, conversations, and vocabulary aloud, which creates a comprehensive, immersive practice environment. And by the time I feel ready to attend the actual celebration, I have rehearsed greetings, compliments, gratitude, teamwork, cultural norms, and descriptive narration, all while practicing pronunciation, sentence formation, and conversational confidence, which ensures that when the real event happens, I am fully prepared to use English naturally, confidently, and fluently. And this extensive preparation phase serves as the foundation for the next sections of engagement and reflection during the celebration, where all these skills will be applied in real-time interactions with my stepdad, stepbrother, and family. As the day of the family celebration finally arrives, I step into a room filled with colorful decorations, sparkling lights, music, laughter, and the mouth-watering aroma of freshly baked cake and savory dishes. And immediately I start applying everything I practiced during the preparation phase, greeting everyone warmly with phrases like, "Happy birthday," "Happy holidays," or "It's so nice to see you," while noticing their reactions, smiles, and gestures, which helps me adjust my tone, volume, and choice of words to match the social environment. And as I move further into the room, I offer polite assistance to my stepdad by saying, "Would you like me to help with the decorations? Or can I take this to the table?" While helping to arrange plates, cups, and cutlery and narrate internally. I am placing the napkins neatly on the table and adjusting the centerpiece, which reinforces descriptive language, action verbs, and sentence structure in English. I interact with my stepbrother, who might be teasing or joking, by practicing conversational phrases like, "That's funny," "Good one," or "I think we should try this together." And I notice how responding naturally while maintaining politeness helps build rapport and confidence. And I also engage with cousins, friends, and extended family by asking questions such as, "Did you help with the decorations?" Or "How was your day?" And responding appropriately with, "Yes, I helped with the table settings," or "It was wonderful, thank you," which strengthens my small talk, listening comprehension, and social skills simultaneously. During games, group activities, or performances, I actively participate by narrating my actions aloud or mentally. I am rolling the dice carefully and moving my game piece while smiling at my stepbrother, or I am clapping politely as the younger cousins sing, which helps me integrate vocabulary related to celebrations, actions, and social interactions, while also improving my fluency and comfort in real life scenarios. I also consciously practice giving compliments and expressing gratitude throughout the event, saying things like, "The cake looks amazing," "I love the decorations," or "Thank you for including me in this celebration," which not only reinforces English vocabulary, but also strengthens my social confidence and awareness of cultural etiquette. And I observe how different family members respond to compliments and adjust my language accordingly, learning new phrases or polite expressions from them in the process. When participating in rituals such as lighting candles, making a toast, or exchanging gifts, I pay close attention to the cultural norms and appropriate language, practicing phrases like, "I am wishing you a happy birthday while handing you this gift," or "Congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful year," and I narrate internally each step. I am holding the gift with both hands, smiling politely and speaking clearly, which reinforces both language and culturally appropriate behavior. Throughout the celebration, I notice fast conversations happening around me and use strategies I practiced earlier, such as focusing on keywords, predicting meaning, and listening for context, which allows me to follow discussions between multiple family members. Even when they speak quickly or use idioms, and I repeat their phrases mentally or aloud, I understand they are planning a group game for later, or they are discussing the music playlist for the party, which reinforces comprehension and active engagement. I also handle minor challenges gracefully, such as a sudden change in activity, someone asking for help, or overlapping conversations, by practicing phrases like, "No problem, I can help with that," or let me assist you, which combines problem solving with polite English expressions. As I engage, I consciously observe my stepbrother's reactions, noticing when he is teasing or joking, and respond with humor and politeness, saying, "You're so funny," or "I like your idea," which builds rapport while practicing conversational vocabulary, tone, and intonation. And with my stepdad, I focus on respectful language, asking questions politely, responding to instructions, and offering help where appropriate. "Would you like me to carry this? Can I help set up the table?" And narrating internally, I am following his instructions carefully and speaking politely, which reinforces social skills, practical language, and confidence. During meals, I practice ordering, complimenting, and expressing gratitude. "This dish is delicious, thank you." Or, "I really appreciate your effort in preparing the dessert," which enhances descriptive English, polite expressions, and fluency in a natural context, while also reinforcing vocabulary related to food, celebrations, and cultural etiquette. Throughout the event, I engage in short conversations with multiple family members, practicing active listening by summarizing their points aloud mentally. They are asking about my day and sharing their own experiences, or I understand they are discussing the plan for the evening game, which strengthens listening comprehension, attention to detail, and real-time processing of English speech. I also reflect internally on the vocabulary I hear, noting words like gift, toast, party, decorations, celebration, and gratitude, and repeat these words aloud, which reinforces memory, pronunciation, and usage. And I encourage viewers to imagine themselves narrating their actions aloud as they participate in a real-life celebration, practicing greetings, compliments, polite requests, and descriptive sentences, because this active engagement turns ordinary events into immersive English learning experiences. By the end of the celebration, after playing games, helping with setup, giving compliments, participating in rituals, and interacting naturally with my stepdad, stepbrother, and extended family, I notice a significant boost in my confidence, vocabulary, fluency, and ability to engage socially in English. And I reflect on how narrating actions, practicing etiquette, observing cultural norms, and expressing gratitude has strengthened both my language skills and my social confidence. And I realize that family celebrations provide a perfect environment for learners to practice English naturally, apply phrases in context, build listening and speaking skills, and enjoy meaningful social interactions. And by actively engaging in this immersive practice, anyone can transform a single family event into a rich learning experience that strengthens vocabulary, conversational ability, polite expressions, and descriptive language, while simultaneously improving confidence, comprehension, and fluency. And these real-life interactions also help learners internalize culturally appropriate behavior, conversational timing, and social awareness, making celebrations not just enjoyable, but also an invaluable learning opportunity for advanced English listening, speaking, and social communication skills. As the celebration comes to an end, I find a quiet moment to reflect on the entire experience, mentally reviewing every interaction, greeting, compliment, polite request, and cultural tradition I participated in throughout the event. And I realize how much practical English I use naturally, from saying happy birthday and happy holidays to my stepdad, stepbrother, and extended family, to offering help with decorations, arranging food, and participating in games, to giving compliments like, the cake looks amazing, or the decorations are beautiful, and expressing gratitude with phrases such as, thank you for including me, or I really appreciate your effort. And while narrating these moments internally or aloud, I notice how much my vocabulary, fluency, and confidence have improved. And I reflect on the cultural aspects I observed, like the proper way to exchange gifts, respond to toasts, participate in group activities, and follow social cues, which has not only enhanced my language skills, but also deepened my understanding of etiquette and appropriate behavior in celebratory contexts. And I mentally summarize each interaction, thinking, I greeted everyone politely. I offered help when needed. I complimented appropriately. And I expressed gratitude at every opportunity, which reinforces the practical use of vocabulary and conversational phrases in real life settings. I also think about my stepbrother's playful teasing and jokes, and how I responded with humor and politeness, using phrases like, that's funny, or good one, while maintaining a friendly tone, which helped me build rapport, practice conversational timing, and expand my vocabulary for informal interactions. And with my stepdad, I reflect on how I followed instructions, asked questions politely, and offered assistance with phrases like, can I help you with this? Or would you like me to do that? And I narrate my mental observations aloud, noting body language, intonation, and stress patterns, which helps reinforce comprehension and social awareness. And I realize that actively practicing these interactions, narrating my actions, and reflecting on responses is one of the most effective ways to strengthen English fluency in a natural, immersive context. I also review the dialogues I had with cousins, friends, and other family members, remembering questions I asked, answers I gave, and compliments I offered. And I note new words or expressions I learned, such as toast, celebration, festivity, gift exchange, and party games, and I repeat them aloud to reinforce pronunciation, meaning, and usage, which helps consolidate my memory and allows me to use these words confidently in future events. And I mentally practice alternative responses I could have given, imagining phrases like, I really enjoyed helping set up, or the music selection is fantastic, which expands my repertoire and prepares me for similar occasions in the future. I also reflect on the sensory and emotional aspects of the celebration, such as the colorful decorations, the smell of food, the sound of laughter and music, and the warmth of family interactions. And I narrate these details internally in English. The room is filled with laughter, the cake smells sweet, the decorations are bright, and everyone is enjoying themselves, which reinforces descriptive language, attention to detail, and storytelling skills. And I notice that this reflection process not only improves comprehension and expressive language, but also boosts confidence, because I am consciously connecting vocabulary, sentence structure, and cultural understanding to real-life experience. Furthermore, I consider moments when fast conversations occurred, or when multiple people spoke simultaneously, and I reflect on how focusing on keywords, predicting meaning, understanding intonation, and listening for context allowed me to follow along successfully. And I mentally narrate examples, even though the conversation was rapid. I caught the words game, cake, and gift, and from context. I understood the plan for the evening, which reinforces listening strategies and comprehension in real life situations. I also think about moments when I expressed gratitude or gave compliments and how this strengthens social bonds. And I repeat phrases aloud for practice. Thank you for including me. The decorations look amazing. I appreciate your help. And by doing this, I integrate polite expressions naturally into my English repertoire. As I reflect on the entire celebration, I mentally summarize my learning outcomes. I practice greetings, compliments, and polite requests. I participated actively in games, meals, and rituals. I narrated actions and emotions aloud. I listened attentively to conversations, jokes, and instructions. I observed cultural traditions and etiquette. I reinforced vocabulary and sentence structures. I expanded fluency, confidence, and social awareness. And I applied all these skills in a natural, immersive context, which is the ultimate goal of using real-life events as learning opportunities. Finally, I encourage viewers to take the same approach, attend family celebrations, holidays, or social events. Actively participate, narrate your actions, practice greetings, compliments, and polite expressions. Observe cultural and social norms, summarize conversations internally or aloud, and reflect on the experience afterward, because by doing so, you turn every celebration into a comprehensive English learning session, improving listening, speaking, comprehension, fluency, and social communication. And as you consistently apply these strategies, you will notice gradual improvement, increased confidence, and the ability to interact naturally with family, friends, and strangers in any English-speaking environment. And by embracing celebrations as immersive learning opportunities, you transform ordinary family events into powerful, effective, and enjoyable English practice, strengthening your skills, vocabulary, etiquette, and cultural understanding while building lifelong fluency, confidence, and expressive communication. And this reflection process ensures that every conversation, compliment, polite request, and interaction contributes to your growth as a fluent, confident, and culturally aware English speaker. And ultimately, the lessons learned from one celebration can be applied to countless future situations, making your English learning experience both practical and deeply meaningful.